6:39 is our time. We have 79 degrees. And give us an update, if you will, Dr. Sidler, because on COVID-19, I don't know whether, once again, the media is getting hysterical or whether the threat is serious. But I think there's one community or one area in the country where somebody in a position in health and medicine is indicating that we may need to start wearing masks again. What do you, your assessment of where we are?
Well, if people are paying attention to news reports, they are starting to see reports that a number of health experts are saying that it's time to bring back the masks. This is, CNN has a headline out today.
Okay.
Maybe time to bring back the masks, some COVID experts say. And if you look at the incidence of the COVID-19, here we're looking at it in the studio here. You see all these spikes throughout the 3 years of the COVID pandemic. It's being widely reported that there's a surge in new COVID cases. Now, surge might be a slight overstatement because, as you can see,
there's no surge there.
Way down at the end of the curve,
the surge.
There's this incrementally tiny little bump in incidence.
Doc, that's because Sergio has COVID.
Surge?
Yeah, there's a surge, yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. There actually have been a slight increase in the number of new cases reported in the past 3 weeks or so. And that's being interpreted as a surge. They're talking now about going back to masks, recommending more booster shots. A couple of the pharmaceutical companies are planning to come out with a new reformulated booster for the fall that includes some of these more recent strains. The problem is the strains keep mutating, they keep changing. Every time we sit here in the studio, we're talking about different strains that have become the predominant strain. Right now, the predominant strain is this Omicron variant BA.2.86. So that's now the predominant strain, but it only makes up about 20% of the cases. So there's a dozen other strains that make up the other 80%, none of which quite reach 20% total of the whole. But that will keep changing. There's a new one that, if you've been paying attention, there's a new strain that's emerged. It's been in Denmark and a couple of other countries, but now there have been a couple of cases found in the U.S., and that's let's see, that's this new strain, the being called the Iris strain, EG.5. Now, some reports are saying that this is a whole new variant, not related to the Omicron, but that's false. So don't get too concerned here about some of these reports. People are just always looking for the most ominous, kind of worst-sounding headlines. This is also another offshoot of Omicron, as we've got an article up here in the studio here, the EG.5. That one, it was first noticed last week in the U.S. when a couple of visitors who had traveled abroad and returned to the U.S. were diagnosed with this new EG.5 strain. And, of course, every time a new strain comes along, everybody starts getting worried, well, is this one going to be worse than the last ones? And is this one going to spread more? And is it going to cause more disease? And is it going to be resistant to the vaccine? All of these concerns, we don't know yet because there's only been, as of early in this week, there were only 2 cases. I read yesterday that there may be as many as 5 to 7 cases now in the U.S. of this EG.5, but it seems like it is capable of spreading, maybe rapidly. Like all of these Omicron variants have had fairly high contagiousness to them. If that's the case, we'll learn more about it. But again, it's so new, we just don't know all that much about. Is it going to be a worse strain? Chances are pretty good because remember, we've heard this before. Every one of these new strains, there's always this rather worrisome kind of claim that this could be a bigger, worse part of the pandemic can cause a surge in all of this. And the fact that we are seeing just a few more cases, although they're not from this strain, people are worried that this is going to cause another pandemic winter. We don't know yet. This EG5 strain may turn out to be a big dud, but that's the latest strain, EG5, and again, the latest predominant strain is the BA 2.86
Sounds
strain.
like bingo to me.
Yeah, well,
None of these seem to be causing high mortality. Everybody who gets sick with these seems to have relatively mild disease so far and get over it quickly.
Mike, you've never gotten a shot, have you?
no, I have no intention to. It's I don't know. Am I suffering from false bravado? Quite possibly, but
But you're still healthy and you're still upright.
I'm still fat and happy, so I think I'll just continue on my present course. I think I have a much better chance of getting hit by a bus crossing the street than I do of dying from COVID at this point in my life. But absent any, I'm at the point where I'm not going to worry about a mask. If people tell me that, oh, you can't go here or there unless you're wearing a mask, fine, I won't go. I do have a wonderful Amazon and UPS truck driver, and all my stuff gets deposited on my doorstep when I do a couple of taps on my tablet. And at this point, I can live quite happily without having to, to bow to the people who require me to wear masks to go into this place or that. So
I always like it. The example I like to give is before COVID-19 hit us, there was always a sign on the bank door, mask not allowed.
Yeah.
Then we get hit by it and it says, please wear a mask when coming in and leave the gun outside.
Yeah, well, it used to be, you'd go to work and there'd be that one person that always came in. Their nose would be running like a faucet. They got red eyes. They're dragging their butt behind them because they're half dead, but they had to come into work.
Yeah.
Maybe just to
So
get
they
away.
could infect everybody.
Well, maybe just to get away from their kids.
Yeah.
And everyone knew, okay, so, don't drink coffee out of the same cup that he or she's using.
I do that all the time.
If there was one positive thing in my mind that came out of the last COVID shutdown we had, was that people finally learned to wash their hands, after coming out of the toilet. But
Which
That
had
I
nothing
wouldn't
to
have
do
told.
with COVID, by
well,
the
probably
way.
not. But you can take everything else, the masks and the 6 feet and all this, and toss it out the window. But let's keep washing our hands, because that maybe it doesn't necessarily prevent COVID, but it certainly, probably helps with a bunch of other stuff. But listen, winter's going to come. We're gonna, the interior atmosphere of homes and businesses is going to dry out. Our mucous membranes are going to be easily permeable by whatever's floating around out there, and we're going to get coughs, colds, and flus. There's nothing that's going to stop that. Certainly not masks.
And here's kind of the paradox is that the predominant strain in the U.S. for about the last 6 months has been the XBB 1.5 strain. And that one hung around for such a long time that now we've got two of the major pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer and Moderna, have formulated a new booster.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we came out with the bivalent
Yeah.
booster about a year ago that included the original strain plus the original Omicron variant. But now this new booster that's going to come along in about a month or two has got the XBB 1.5 variant included in it as a mRNA protein. But here we are already this week eclipsing the XBB 1.5 with this BA 2.86. I know this is all confusing to people listening to me use this as jargon, but it's not even likely that will be the predominant strain in another couple of weeks. The booster shots that are going to come along in the fall that we're all being told or we should take are probably not even going to cover the new strains that are emerging now and will be the predominant strains for the fall and winter. In fact, almost certainly there will be even more new strains that we don't even know of yet that will replace the ones that are coming out now. So how good are these boosters that we're all going to be told we have to take, and maybe we'll have to go back to carrying cards and not be allowed into basketball games if we don't have a card that shows the latest booster? I don't know. I'm seeing on social media an enormous percentage of people saying, I will not comply. I will not take any more of these shots.
People are fed up with it.
At this point, Doc, the only BA I'm concerned about in my life is BA Baracus.
You have to help me out here.
That's Mr. T from the A-Team. Or Mr. T from the A-Team.
I was not a fan of the A-Team. So I didn't watch that.
And the thing that you pointed out is the people who are getting COVID-19 are people who've been vaccinated, who've taken the vaccine.
Actually, that's been true now for over a year, that the majority of people getting new cases are vaccinated individuals. Now part of that's because the majority of people in the U.S., 68-70% of people are vaccinated in the U.S., so you would expect maybe a little bit of that, but it's more than just what would be expected by the population. It seems like the vaccinations just aren't protecting. They may lessen the severity of disease.
That's what the argument is for getting a shot.
That's the argument. We don't even know if that's true, because the overall effects of these latest strains is that they're milder. They're all milder than those original strains of the COVID. And so we don't even know if that's a benefit. So it's going to be really tough to convince people to take this. But you've got politicians that get into this and they start passing new laws, and school boards starting to require kids to get more shots. I don't know if I still had kids in school and the school board said you have to get more of these COVID
I'd look
shots.
for another school.
I'd homeschool. Yeah,
it just seems insane when, by all measures, by all accounts, by every study I've ever seen, the very least susceptible group to serious COVID are the young. And they seem to be the ones that even now are still being highly encouraged, if not required, to get the vaccination. Because, they're school children, they're involved with each other, they're sneezing on each other, they're touching each other, they're children are germ factors.
And nobody can argue with the compassion that we want to protect our kids.
Right.
That's sort of the weapon that some of these overbearing rules people are trying to use. But we're just trying to be safe and protect our kids. But they have done more damage to these kids in the last generation, the last couple of years. This generation of kids that have gone through grade school and into high school by shutting down classes, by going to remote Zoom classes. It was found in New York, Philadelphia, Chicago that when they went to these remote classes, the Zoom software, connection classes, that less than half the people logged on, even one time, while that was going on. So how much schooling have these kids missed? How much socialization have they been retarded in their development? And for no good purpose, because now we have more and more study data that suggests that it really didn't serve any purpose, that it didn't protect kids the way we thought, that more people caught COVID at home than they ever did in schools, that masks were ineffective, that the vaccines failed to protect kids, and that, again, as Mike said, because they were the lowest risk individuals, the risk side effect ratio was the highest in the young kids than in any age group. In other words, more side effects compared to the benefits.
And they were giving them to babies 6 months old, for crying out loud.
That to me was a huge mistake, recommending 6 months and up for vaccinations. Yes.
Well, we want to not necessarily end, but certainly highlight one of the pleasant benefits of dealing with COVID COVID-19 today is that we don't have to listen to Dr. Fauci anymore. He's gone.
I'm happy to be rid of the man. I mean, he just oozes hubris. I'm sorry.
I love the debates whenever he was appearing before a committee between he and what was it, Rand Paul?
Rand Paul.
Yeah. And Paul really lambasted him. And Dr. Fauci's retort was, you don't know what you're talking about. I think, frankly speaking, Rand Paul's medical credentials are as good as Dr. Fauci's because this was not his specialty, although he became that specialty and the highest paid government official in Washington, D.C. But he's gone. We do have a late-breaking news story we want to bring you up to date. With tongue-in-cheek, we want to announce that Lou's Drive-In is closed.
Oh.
Decided
Just
to
for
close
today.
it just for today.
Yes.
Oh, thank God. I mean, I'd be heartbroken if Lou's was closed.
I mean, you know, when you talk about fluid, you've got to get root beer.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's most root beer caffeine-free.
You know,
I think it
I
is.
think it does.
I think it is
don't know.
caffeine-free for them.